Let's take you through the papers this morning with political consultant Emma Burnell and deputy editor of Spiked, Fraser Myers.
Hello
Good
again.
to see you both again. Can we start with the Observer, Emma, and looking at this Easter Sunday, the Turin Shroud?
The Turin Shroud. There's nothing about this story I don't love. It's someone who made a documentary about the Turin Shroud in the late 70s is questioning the tests that were done in the late 80s.
The carbon dating.
They carbon dated it to the 14th or 15th century.
Just remind us what the Turin Shroud was meant to be, or is thought to be.
The Turin Shroud is contested at best, but was believed for quite some time to be the cloth that Jesus' body was wrapped in the 3 days between his death on the cross and his resurrection.
And the astonishing thing is that when you look at it, it appears to have images of his face.
Yeah.
It appears to have imprints of where his body laid and how it... And, I mean, obviously it's always been worshipped for many hundreds of years as his shroud.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, though, there's a documentary made and they carbon dated it. And what was it found to be?
So it was found to be when they carbon dated it. Now, weirdly, because of a set of books that I adore by a writer called Ellie Griffiths, which is all about a forensic archaeologist getting involved in police investigations, I'm strangely knowledgeable about carbon dating, which I should not be. Carbon dating can date something to roughly 100 years.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to work out if someone was killed in the 1980s or the 1880s, you can do that. What you can't do is work out whether they were killed in 1982 or 1983.
Yeah.
But with something like the Turin Shroud, it could be considered to be pretty accurate. But obviously this guy, his life's work has been the Turin Shroud. I think what's interesting about the Turin Shroud, and the questions we should be asking, I mean, faith is faith. It's not belief with evidence. That's the point of faith.
It's nice to have a bit of evidence, though, isn't it?
I mean, but even if this sheet had been dated back to the year of our Lord 000033 or whatever, what does it prove, really? And my favourite part of this story is he says that because of the way that the image is, it appears to have been done by a flash of radiation. So that's the first I've heard of that's what happened at the resurrection of Christ.
Well, that's right, yeah.
Interesting. I was just looking at the image now, actually, on my computer. It's worth having a Google. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating image. You can see why people would say,
absolutely.
But if it was
500
years old, it's 500 years.
Yeah, but even as you say, if the cloth dates back to the time of Christ, the ink or whatever was used to make the image, when was that dated to be? Is there anything new in what's reported today?
Why do we know that it's Jesus and not,
anyone who was crucified? Yeah. Well, the wounds apparently on the limbs correlate with what we were told about Jesus' death. But what's today's article saying? Anything new?
Basically, he's put up a challenge to the British Museum, who had the Turin Shroud in the 80s when the carbon dating was done, saying, I will donate £1 million if you can recreate how this was done. The British Museum gave this fairly short shrift and said, look, it's over in Turin now, it's not our problem.
Yeah.
I mean, they will always want, as technology gets better and better and better at being able to date these things or prove or disprove these things, there will always be calls for, scientists to say, have another look now, use new technology to try and find out. And what you're saying is it really is a question whether you believe them.
Exactly. It's not something you could prove either way. As Emma said earlier, it could be the exact date of Jesus' death, but how do we know that it's him,
Well, not all bodies leave an imprint on a shroud.
Well,
and that's the theory to those who want to theorise about it, to try and be pseudoscientific about what is an ultimate faith thing on Easter Sunday, is if there was a moment of resurrection that would have caused this sort of flash of radiation that would have imprinted in some way on the shroud. I don't know, I find that it's absolutely fascinating.
It is fascinating.
And if it is a forgery, my goodness, it's a clever, well thought out one.
There is a fascinating history of religious reliquary forgeries that goes back as old as religion itself, and has, for me, just as much fascination and interest.
Yeah.
Let's look at the Mail on Sunday, Fraser. And lots of people have been heading out to the beach this weekend. Do we need to wear a mask?
Well, that's the Cornwall Council are saying people should wear a mask on the beach, as is Lincolnshire Council, where people will go to Skegness, for instance. I mean, it's not going to be great for your suntan if you're wearing a mask on the beach, but it's a strange bit of advice. Strange, probably even during the worst of the COVID times, because the beach is outside and out in the open air, probably one of the safest places.
But there is a surge in COVID at the moment.
There is at the moment, but you're probably not going to catch it outside. You're probably not going, and especially as we go into the summer, things become less dangerous, and people have the option of vaccination now. We've got milder variants. It just seems at odds with where we are.
Do we know that they have actually called for this, have they? I mean, this isn't. So no one's just making this up, are they?
I think there's going to be, they're going to put signs up and things like that asking for people to mask up.
Nobody's going to do it.
No one's going to do it. No. And so it's going to fall on deaf ears. I think most people have returned pretty much to normal by this stage.
I wouldn't do it.
Meanwhile, in China, I read that 44 towns and cities in China at the moment are either in full or partial lockdown because they're going through another surge.
But they're talking they want zero COVID.
Yeah.
It's a zero COVID
But
policy.
44 towns and cities in lockdown.
I wonder why they're so scared of COVID.
Yeah.
When the rest of us are saying we just need to get on with it.
They've bet their whole kind of national pride on being able to, on beating it, on being able to control COVID. And now clearly the kind of Omicron variant is just so transmissible that not even these ultra strict lockdowns, where people are basically being taken away from their families.
Oh, I mean, yes, if we'd been discussing this a year ago, very few of us would actually have experienced COVID ourselves or know people who had. But now it seems that everybody's...
Everyone's got COVID.
Mum and Dad have got it at the moment. Hopefully they're doing well. Sorry.
Yeah, that might
Would if I could find it.
Emma, in the Sunday Telegraph, we need to be careful what we're looking at on the tube, should you be in London.
Yes, there is a suggestion that from a senior police officer that staring should be prosecutable under sexual harassment laws. I mean,
Good luck
I'm
proving
quite often on here as the strong voice of prosecuting, pursuing. I was an hour ago talking about really, really important measures around sexual harassment and getting in early when we're talking about things that could escalate. For me, this seems absolutely ludicrous for several reasons. Yes, it is very uncomfortable to be stared at on the tube. I mean, and we've all had it. It's not. Quite often you get. I mean, I know that on Twitter I'm going to get there. Well, no one's looking at you, love. Response, but actually. Everyone has it, but there are so many things that we should do before we just go straight to that criminal prosecution. And
what do you think you
there
can
are
do?
societal things.
If you're sitting on the tube and you find that you are being stared at in what feels like a really menacing way or a sexually harassing way, what can you do about it?
I mean, we should be teaching people just basic manners in the first place. And men in particular, and that can be right up to staring and super spreading. Sorry, man spreading, not super spreading, that's a different thing. But there are, but I think, I would like the police to be dealing with the much, much more serious fact that only 1% of rape prosecutions are ending in
That's what we were talking about
and that's
earlier,
1% of rape cases that get taken to court. Never mind the hidden thousands that don't.
I think it's you can't stop legislating out how people look. Even
Also,
if
how do you know what someone's staring about? They're talking about sexual intent. I can just end up like this.
Yeah, slack-jawed early morning stare versus a menacing stare. How do you tell them?
Oh no, it's crackers.
And also, there's also as well as this kind of threat of potential prosecution, which is really alarming enough. I'm getting increasingly annoyed by there's just so many tube signs telling you what to do now. Every advertisement, rather than telling you to buy something which you could ignore, is telling you how to behave. Stand here, do this, do that. Don't stare at people. Don't sexually harass people on your way to work. As if most people are going to do that anyway. I do wonder who's deterred by these signs.
To be fair, I get annoyed because there's a mattress company with my name, and I'm looking at it going, that's not a message I need to see.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Well, look, lovely. I think we're out of time. But
We are.
It is really good to see you both this morning. Emma, Fraser, thank you both very much.
And happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Don't forget it's Easter Sunday.